There's a moment that should feel like opening. Someone looks at you with softness. They say something kind, something real, something that reaches toward you with warmth. And instead of letting it in, something inside closes. Not dramatically, quietly. A door you didn't know existed slides shut. The words land on the surface but don't penetrate. The love arrives and you watch it from behind glass, unable to feel what you know you're supposed to feel. From the outside, nothing looks wrong. You smile. You say thank you. You might even say it back. But inside, there's a strange distance, a numbness where warmth should be. You wonder what's wrong with you, why the thing everyone wants, the thing you thought you wanted feels like something to survive rather than something to receive. They're offering love, and your system is treating it like a threat. This isn't about not wanting love. That would be simpler. This is about wanting it desperately while being unable to let it in, like a starving person who can't swallow. The hunger is real. The food is right there, but something in the body refuses to take it. The longing and the blocking exist in the same moment, tearing you in two directions you can't reconcile. Most people don't talk about this. It's easier to pretend you're fine, or to convince yourself you're just independent, guarded, careful. But this goes deeper than personality. Somewhere along the way, your system learned that love is not safe, that closeness comes with cost, that the hand reaching toward you might look soft but could turn at any moment. And until you understand where that learning came from, the door will keep closing. Automatically, silently, every time love tries to enter. Love is supposed to feel safe. That's the story we're told. But the brain doesn't always agree. For millions of years, survival depended on reading threats accurately, and intimacy, as beautiful as it is, carries real vulnerability. To love is to need. To need is to depend. To depend is to be exposed. The ancient brain knows this, even when the modern mind forgets. In early human life, attachment was survival. An infant without a caregiver died. A rejected tribe member faced the wilderness alone. Love wasn't just emotional. It was existential. The brain evolved to pursue attachment fiercely, but also to monitor its dangers. Because the people you depend on can leave. They can turn on you. They can become the source of your deepest wounds precisely because you let them close enough to wound you. This is the paradox the nervous system holds. Love is necessary and love is dangerous. Both are true. The same person who can comfort you can devastate you. The same closeness that heals can later destroy. The brain, always scanning for threats, never forgets this. Some brains learn to manage the risk, to trust despite the danger. Others learn the opposite, that the danger outweighs the reward, that closeness costs too much. When love has hurt you early, the brain updates its predictions. Intimacy becomes linked with pain. The reward system that should light up around connection starts triggering the threat system instead. You're not crazy for flinching when someone gets close. You're running ancient software that learned, correctly at one point, that love was where the danger lived. The problem is that the software keeps running long after the original threat is gone. The first classroom for love is the family. Before you had words, you were learning. Not from what people said, but from what they did. From how they held you or didn't. From whether your cries were answered or ignored. From the tone beneath the words, the tension in the air, the consistency or chaos of care. The nervous system was taking notes, writing a manual for how love works. A manual you'd follow for decades without knowing it existed. In some homes, love was unstable. It came and went without logic. A parent who was warm one moment, cold the next. Affection that appeared unpredictably and vanished without warning. The child learned that love is not reliable, that feeling close to someone is just the prelude to feeling abandoned. They grew up chasing a warmth that kept disappearing, and eventually stopped trusting that any warmth would stay. In other homes, love came with conditions. You were loved when you performed, when you achieved, when you made no trouble. The child learned that love is earned, not given, that their true self wasn't lovable, only the polished version. They grew up believing that if anyone saw the real them, the love would be revoked. So they hid, and later, when someone tried to love them fully, they couldn't believe it was real. Some children learned that love was pain. A parent who hurt them was also the parent who held them. Anger and affection came from the same hands. The wiring crossed. Intimacy and danger fused into one signal. These children grow into adults who feel most alive in chaos, who distrust kindness, who keep waiting for the softness to turn sharp. They're not choosing dysfunction. They're following a map that was drawn before they could choose anything. Love isn't just an emotion. It's a body experience. When someone moves toward you with affection, your nervous system responds before your mind even registers what's happening. For some people, that response is softening. The body opens, relaxes, leans in, but for others, the response is bracing. The shoulders tighten. The breath shortens. Something inside prepares for impact, even when the incoming contact is gentle. This is the body remembering what the mind may have forgotten. Somewhere in the past, closeness was followed by pain. Tenderness preceded betrayal. The arms that held also hurt. The nervous system recorded these sequences and built a prediction. When love approaches, danger follows. Now, decades later, the body still braces. Not because it's broken, but because it's protecting you from a threat it believes is still real. You might not notice this happening. It's subtle. A slight pulling back, a hardening around the heart, a sudden urge to change the subject or leave the room. The body creates distance before you consciously decide to. It interrupts intimacy with jokes, with deflection, with picking a fight. Anything to restore the space that feels safe. The love was getting too close, and too close is where the danger lives. This isn't a choice. It's a reflex. The same way you'd flinch if someone raised their hand too fast near your face. Your system is reacting to a pattern it learned to survive. The tragedy is that the reflex designed to protect you from pain is now protecting you from love. The armor that saved you in childhood is suffocating you in adulthood. The body doesn't know the war is over. It's still guarding you against a threat that wears the face of tenderness. To be loved, you have to be seen. Really seen. Not the curated version, not the performance, but the raw, unfiltered truth of who you are. For most people, this is vulnerable but possible. For those who can't accept love, it feels like standing naked before a firing squad. Being seen isn't intimacy. It's exposure, and exposure has always led to pain. Attachment wounds shape this fear. When the first people who were supposed to see you, parents, caregivers, early loves, responded with criticism, rejection, or absence, being seen became linked with being hurt. You showed yourself, and what you got back was not acceptance, but judgment. Not embrace, but withdrawal. The lesson was clear. The real you is not welcome here. So you hid, and you've been hiding ever since. The fear of being seen operates in layers. On the surface, it looks like privacy, independence, self-sufficiency. Deeper, it's the terror that if someone truly knew you, they would leave. Or worse, they would stay, but out of pity, obligation, a love that isn't real. You can't trust that anyone could see the full truth and still choose you, because somewhere inside, you believe the full truth is unlovable. This fear creates an impossible trap. You want to be loved for who you are, but you can't show who you are. You want connection, but you only offer a partial self. And when someone loves that partial self, it doesn't count, because they don't know the whole story. You dismiss their love as naive, incomplete, based on a version that isn't real. The wound makes sure that no love can ever land, because no one is allowed close enough to offer it to the real you. Somewhere along the way, a belief took root. Maybe it was planted with words. You're too sensitive. You're too needy. Why can't you just be normal? Or maybe it grew from silence, from the absence of response when you needed it most. The belief doesn't always announce itself. It just hums in the background, shaping every interaction. There is something fundamentally wrong with you. You are either too much for people to handle, or not enough for them to want. Too much looks like this. Your emotions are overwhelming. Your needs are burdensome. Your presence is exhausting. You learned to shrink, to apologize for existing, to take up less space. When someone offers love, you assume it's only a matter of time before they discover how much you actually are, and leave. So you hide your intensity. You pretend to need less. You perform a smaller version of yourself, hoping it will be acceptable. But the performance is exhausting, and the love that reaches the small version can never truly satisfy. Not enough looks different, but cuts just as deep. You're not interesting enough, not attractive enough, not successful enough to deserve real love. You look at what you have to offer and find it lacking. When someone chooses you, you search for their motive, their mistake, their temporary lapse in judgment. They must not see clearly. If they knew what you know about yourself, they'd choose someone better. The love they're offering is a misunderstanding you'll eventually have to pay for. Both beliefs do the same thing. They make love impossible to receive. If you're too much, you have to hide. If you're not enough, you don't deserve it. Either way, the door stays closed. The belief stands guard, protecting you from the love it's convinced will eventually confirm the wound. Better to refuse it now than to be unmasked later. There's a strange comfort in rejection. Not pleasant, but familiar. When someone pulls away, criticizes, or leaves, something in you settles. Not because it feels good, but because it feels true. This is what you expected. This is what you know. The nervous system relaxes into the pain because pain, at least, is predictable. You've been here before. You know how to survive this. But love? Love feels foreign. When someone stays, when they're kind without motive, when they choose you again and again, it doesn't compute. The system that was calibrated for rejection doesn't know what to do with acceptance. It scans for the trap. It waits for the reversal. It cannot rest in something it never learned to recognize as safe. Love feels wrong not because it is wrong, but because it's unfamiliar. And to the nervous system, unfamiliar equals threat. This is how childhood patterns echo into adulthood. If your earliest experiences of love were mixed with pain, inconsistency, or absence, your brain built a template. Love looks like this. When healthy love arrives, steady, calm, available, it doesn't match the template. It feels boring, suspicious, like something must be missing. The chaos you grew up with became your definition of passion. The stability you needed feels like nothing at all. So you find yourself drawn to people who recreate the wound, the ones who are unavailable, unpredictable, just out of reach. They feel like love because they feel like what you know. And you push away the ones who show up consistently because their love doesn't trigger the familiar ache. You're not broken. You're just following a map that was drawn in the dark, long before you could see where it would lead. There's a part of you that doesn't want love to work. Not consciously. You'd never say it out loud. But it operates in the shadows, making sure that every time love gets too close, something goes wrong. A fight started over nothing. A cold withdrawal when things were getting warm. A sudden focus on every flaw, every reason this won't work, every exit strategy. The saboteur is quiet, efficient, and always working. This part isn't evil. It's protective. It remembers every time love led to pain, every abandonment, every betrayal. Its job is simple. Never let that happen again. And the best way to prevent future pain is to prevent future love. So it watches. When someone gets close enough to matter, close enough to hurt, the saboteur activates. It finds a reason to create distance. It manufactures doubt. It turns small problems into relationship-ending crises. The saboteur speaks in reasonable voices. You're just being realistic. Better to end it now than later. They're not right for you anyway. It disguises destruction as wisdom, and you follow its logic, believing you're making smart choices when really you're just obeying an old fear dressed up as common sense. The relationship ends, and part of you feels relief, not because it was wrong, but because the danger has passed. The love that was getting too real has been safely destroyed. The cruelest part is that the saboteur guarantees the very outcome it fears. It's so afraid of being abandoned that it makes sure you leave first. So afraid of being hurt that it creates the pain preemptively. It thinks it's saving you, but it's keeping you alone. The prison it builds feels like protection, but you're still locked inside, watching love approach and be turned away, over and over, by a guard you didn't know you'd hired. There's a question that lives in people who can't accept love. Is this real? And beneath it, another question. Will you leave me too? These questions don't stay quiet. They demand answers. So you test. Not consciously, not with a plan, but constantly, relentlessly, pushing against the love to see if it holds. You need proof, and you'll keep needing it until the relationship breaks under the weight of your doubt. The tests take many forms. You withdraw to see if they chase. You start a fight to see if they stay. You reveal your worst parts suddenly, harshly, watching their face for the flinch that confirms you're too much. You create impossible situations. If they really loved you, they'd know what you need without being told. They'd pass the test you never explained. And when they fail, because how could they not, you have your answer. See? It wasn't real. This testing is a search for safety that destroys the very thing it's trying to secure. Each test that gets passed raises the stakes. The next one has to be harder because the fear hasn't been satisfied. No amount of proof is ever enough. The doubt regenerates. The question returns. You need them to prove their love again and again and again until eventually exhausted, they can't. And when they leave, the saboteur whispers, "I told you so." Underneath the testing is a terrible hope. You want to be proven wrong. You want them to pass every test, break through every wall, love you so undeniably that the fear finally goes quiet. But fear doesn't work that way. It can't be defeated by external proof. The wound that doubts love can only be healed from the inside. And until that happens, every test is just another way of asking a question that no one else can answer. Someone chooses you. Not by accident, not because you were convenient, but deliberately, fully, with open eyes. They see you, your flaws, your history, your dark corners, and they say yes. This is supposed to feel like relief, like arriving, like finally being home. Instead, it feels like standing in a spotlight you didn't ask for, exposed and somehow wrong. Being chosen is uncomfortable in a way you can't explain. The discomfort comes from dissonance. Somewhere deep, you believe you're not the kind of person who gets chosen. You're the one who waits, who hopes, who watches others be picked. When someone breaks that pattern, your system doesn't update. It resists. This must be a mistake. They don't see clearly. Give it time. They'll realize their error and correct it. You brace for the correction because it feels more true than the choosing. There's also the weight of being chosen. If someone wants you, you owe them something. You have to be worth it. You have to maintain whatever illusion made them say yes. The choice becomes a debt, and you're already calculating how you'll fail to repay it. The freedom someone else might feel, being wanted, being claimed, lands on you like obligation. You didn't want to be seen this clearly. Now you have to live up to what they think they see. And so the discomfort curdles into something else. The urge to undo it. To prove you're not worth choosing. To show them who you really are so they can make the rational decision to leave. The love they're offering sits on the table, and you keep sliding it back saying, "This isn't for me. You must have meant to give it to someone else." The tragedy is that they meant it for exactly you, and you're the only one who can't believe it. You're in the relationship. You're saying the right things, doing the right things, showing up in all the ways you're supposed to. But underneath, there's a quiet voice that won't stop whispering. They don't know. They love someone who doesn't exist. The version of you they fell for is a performance, and one day the curtain will fall and they'll see there was nothing real behind it. This is imposter syndrome in love. The same feeling people have at work, that they've somehow fooled everyone and will soon be exposed, but deeper, more personal. Because this isn't about competence. It's about your very self. You feel like a fraud, not because you lied, but because being loved feels like a lie. How can they love you when you don't even know who you are? When the self you show them is held together with effort and fear. The fraud feeling has roots. If you grew up performing for love, being good, being quiet, being whatever was needed, you learned that the real you wasn't enough. Only the edited version got affection. Now, in adult relationships, you keep editing. You keep managing. You keep presenting the version you think they want, while the real you watches from behind the curtain, unseen and unloved. The love they offer lands on the mask. The face underneath stays starving. The cruelest part is that you can't tell them. Admitting you feel like a fraud risks confirming it. If you say, "I don't feel real," they might finally see through you. So you stay silent, performing connection while feeling none, accepting love that never reaches past the surface. The relationship continues. The loneliness deepens. You're in a partnership and you've never felt more alone. Something shifts when love actually lands. Against all odds, past all defenses, someone got through. You have the thing you wanted. Connection, closeness, someone who stays. And instead of peace, there's a new terror. Now you have something to lose. Now there's something that can be taken. The walls kept you lonely, but they also kept you safe from this. The unbearable vulnerability of having something precious. The fear of loss can be worse than loss itself. Your mind starts rehearsing future pain. You imagine them leaving, dying, falling out of love. You see the ending before the middle has even been lived. Part of you is already grieving a relationship that's still alive, preparing for the devastation that feels inevitable. You can't enjoy what you have because you're too busy bracing for when you won't have it. This anticipatory grief steals the present. You're in their arms, but mentally composing how you'll survive without them. You're happy, and immediately wondering how long until the happiness is destroyed. The nervous system, so accustomed to loss, can't believe that anything good will last. It insists on reminding you, this will end. This will hurt. Better to prepare now than be blindsided later. Some people push love away to avoid this fear entirely. Others let love in but can't relax into it. They hold on too tight, becoming controlling or jealous. Or they keep one foot out, never fully committing, always ready to run. The fear says, if you never fully have it, you can never fully lose it. But that protection has its own cost, a half-lived love, a connection always dampened by the shadow of its imagined ending. You survive, but you never arrive. To receive love, you have to let someone in. You have to open the door, lower the armor, allow yourself to be seen unguarded. For most people, this is uncomfortable but manageable. For those who can't accept love, it feels like something much worse. Vulnerability doesn't feel like intimacy. It feels like annihilation, like handing someone a knife and showing them exactly where to cut. This isn't drama. It's the nervous system's honest assessment. If early experiences taught you that openness leads to pain, then the body remembers. Every time you were vulnerable and got hurt, the lesson deepened. Never again. The walls grew higher, the armor got thicker. And now, when someone asks you to be real with them, your system responds as if they're asking you to walk into traffic. The danger feels that immediate, that physical. Vulnerability requires trust that the other person won't use your openness against you. But how do you trust when trust has been broken before? The people who should have protected your vulnerability, parents, early loves, were sometimes the ones who exploited it. They saw your soft places and pressed. They learned your fears and used them. You discovered that being known is being armed against. Now, every invitation to intimacy triggers the same alarm. This is how you get destroyed. So you stay closed. Not because you don't want love, but because the price of receiving it feels too high. The walls aren't stubbornness. They're survival. But survival isn't living. And somewhere beneath the protection, there's a part of you that knows this, that aches for the very thing it won't allow, that wants so badly to be held but can't stop flinching every time someone reaches. It takes energy to refuse what you want. Constant energy. The vigilance required to keep love at a safe distance, to monitor every interaction for signs of getting too close, to maintain the walls while pretending they don't exist. It's exhausting. You're not just living your life. You're managing a defensive operation that runs every moment of every day, even when you sleep. Think about what it requires. Scanning for kindness and deflecting it. Receiving compliments and neutralizing them. Feeling closeness approach and manufacturing distance. Wanting to say yes and forcing yourself to say no. Or saying yes while making sure nothing actually lands. There's no rest in this. No moment when the system can power down. The guard is always on duty, even when there's nothing to guard against. People who can't accept love often feel tired in ways they can't explain. Their lives might look manageable, even successful, but underneath they're running a second job, the job of keeping intimacy at bay. Every relationship requires extra labor, monitoring, adjusting, protecting. What should be nourishing becomes depleting. What should fill them up drains them instead. They're working against the very thing that could give them rest. The cruelest irony is that love is supposed to be the cure for this exhaustion. Being held, being accepted, being safe with another person, these are the things that allow the nervous system to finally relax. But the person who can't accept love never accesses this rest. They're in the desert, refusing water. They're freezing, pushing away blankets. The thing they need most is the thing they can't stop rejecting. And the rejection itself is what's wearing them down. There's a version of you that would be worthy of love. You can see them clearly. The better version, the fixed version, the one without all the flaws and failures and shameful parts. If you could just become that person, then you could accept love. Then it would make sense. But you're not that person yet. You're the messy, imperfect one. And the messy, imperfect one doesn't deserve what's being offered. Perfectionism looks like high standards. Underneath, it's a defense against vulnerability. If you're perfect, you can't be criticized. If you're flawless, you can't be rejected for your flaws. The pursuit of perfection is really the pursuit of safety, a way to earn love by being beyond reproach. But it backfires, because perfection is impossible, and as long as you require it before accepting love, love will never be accepted. This creates a painful loop. You reject love because you're not good enough. You work harder to become good enough. You still don't feel worthy, so you reject love again. The goal keeps moving. The standard keeps rising. No matter how much you achieve, the inner critic finds new flaws, new reasons why you still haven't earned the right to be loved. The perfectionism that was supposed to make you lovable becomes the very thing that keeps you alone. Intimacy requires being loved in your imperfection. That's the whole point. It's not about earning acceptance through achievement. It's about being accepted as you are, broken, incomplete, still figuring it out. The perfectionist can't tolerate this. It feels like cheating, like getting something you didn't pay for. But love was never meant to be paid for. And until perfectionism loosens its grip, you'll keep working for something that can only be received. You can know something without feeling it. You can understand intellectually that someone loves you, see the evidence, hear the words, recognize the actions, while feeling absolutely nothing inside. The love is real, but it doesn't land. There's a gap between what's being given and what you're able to receive, And that gap is where connection goes to die. Being loved is external. It's what someone else does, offers, expresses. It exists whether you accept it or not. But feeling loved is internal. It requires the nervous system to receive the signal, to let it through, to register safety and warmth in the body. You can be surrounded by love and feel completely alone if the receiving system is broken. The love is there. You're just not able to take it in. This gap confuses everyone, including you. Your partner shows love in 100 ways, and you still feel empty. You wonder if they're doing it wrong, if something's missing, if maybe you're just not compatible. But the problem isn't the love. It's the receiver. Somewhere along the way, the channel got blocked. The signal comes in, but static is all you hear. You're not unlovable. You're just unable to feel loved, which is a different problem entirely. Understanding this distinction changes everything. It stops you from blaming the people who love you. It stops you from searching for better love, more love, different love, thinking the next relationship will finally fill the hole. The hole isn't about them. It's about you. The healing isn't in finding someone who loves you harder. It's in learning to let the love that's already there actually reach you. Giving is easy for you. You know how to offer, how to help, how to show up for others. You can love outward without hesitation. But receiving, that's different. When someone tries to give to you, attention, care, affection, help, something in you seizes. You deflect. You minimize. You change the subject or insist you don't need it. Receiving feels harder than giving ever did. This isn't accidental. Receiving is a skill, and skills are learned. If you grew up in a home where your needs weren't met, you learned not to have them. If asking for help was met with burden or refusal, you learned to never ask. If love came with strings, you learned that receiving meant owing. The lesson was clear. Don't need anything from anyone. Take care of yourself. Receiving is dangerous, so you became the giver, the helper, the one who's always fine, always managing, never needing. This felt safer. Giving keeps you in control. You decide what goes out, when, and how much. But receiving requires surrender. It requires trusting that someone will give without taking, offer without expecting, love without conditions. For someone who learned that love always has a cost, this trust feels impossible. But here's what no one told you. Relationships can't survive on one-way flow. If you only give and never receive, people can't actually reach you. They offer, you deflect, and they're left holding love with nowhere to put it. Eventually, they stop trying. The relationship starves, not from lack of love, but from your inability to take it in. Receiving isn't selfish. It's necessary. It completes the circuit, and learning it might be the most important relationship skill you never knew you were missing. There's a moment, somewhere in the healing, when you look back and see it clearly. All the people who tried, all the hands that reached for you, all the love that was offered, sincerely, openly, and you couldn't take it. Not because you didn't want it, but because something in you wasn't able. The door was closed, and you didn't have the key. And now, looking back, you feel the weight of everything that passed you by. This is grief. Not for what was taken from you, but for what you couldn't receive. The partner who loved you fully while you kept them at arm's length. The friend who saw you clearly while you hid. The parent who maybe tried, in their imperfect way, while you were too defended to notice. You protected yourself from pain, yes, but you also protected yourself from love. And both have a cost. The grief can feel unbearable. You might resist it, tell yourself it doesn't matter, focus on the future instead. But grief that isn't felt doesn't disappear. It sits inside, adding to the weight you already carry. Letting yourself mourn the love you missed isn't self-pity. It's necessary. It's how you acknowledge the real cost of the walls you built. It's how you honor both the love that was offered and the part of you that couldn't let it in. There's no way to get that love back. Time only moves forward. But grief, fully felt, opens something. It softens the defenses. It reminds you what's at stake if nothing changes. The tears you cry for past love become the fuel for receiving future love. The heart that finally breaks open is the heart that can finally let something in. The grief isn't the end. It's the door. Love gets close and something in you screams, "Go. Leave. Find the exit." The instinct is powerful, almost physical. A pull toward the door, toward safety, toward the familiar loneliness that at least doesn't ask anything of you. Running has always worked. It's kept you protected, but it's also kept you alone. And now, if you want something different, you have to learn the hardest thing: how to stay. Staying doesn't mean the fear disappears. It means you feel the fear and don't obey it. You notice the urge to run, the tightening in your chest, the voice that says this is too much, and you stay anyway. Not because it's comfortable, but because you finally understood that comfort has been a cage. The discomfort of staying is the price of a different life, and some part of you has decided it's worth paying. This is not about forcing yourself into situations that are genuinely harmful. It's about recognizing when the danger is real versus when it's a ghost from the past. The love in front of you might be safe. The person reaching for you might be trustworthy, but your nervous system doesn't know the difference. It responds to all intimacy as threat. Learning to stay means teaching your body, slowly, that this time might be different, that not everyone leaves, that not every closeness ends in pain. Every moment you stay when instinct says run, you're rewriting the old story. You're proving to your nervous system that survival is possible without walls. It's uncomfortable, sometimes unbearable. But each time you stay, the staying gets slightly easier. The window of tolerance expands. The love that used to be intolerable becomes something you can hold for a moment longer. And moment by moment, you build a new capacity. Not to be fearless, but to be afraid and still remain. There's a life on the other side. You can't see it clearly from here. The fear is too loud, the walls too high. But it exists. A life where love arrives and you actually feel it. Where someone reaches for you and your body softens instead of braces. Where being seen doesn't feel like danger, and being chosen doesn't feel like a mistake. That life is real, and it's waiting for you to stop running long enough to step into it. The journey isn't about becoming someone new. It's about coming home to who you always were, before the wounds taught you to hide. You were born knowing how to receive love. Watch any infant. They take comfort freely, without shame, without doubt. That capacity was never destroyed. It was just buried, protected, locked away where the pain couldn't reach it. Healing isn't about building something new. It's about uncovering what was always there. It won't happen all at once. There's no single moment when the walls come down and you're suddenly free. It's slower than that. One moment of letting someone in. One compliment received without deflection. One time you stay when everything says run. Each small act rewires something. Each risk teaches the nervous system that love can be safe. The change is incremental, almost invisible, until one day you realize you're living differently. You're feeling what you couldn't feel before. If this put words to something you've carried silently, you're not alone. The inability to accept love is one of the most painful and least spoken struggles. It isolates you in plain sight, but it's not a life sentence. The walls you built can be unbuilt. The heart that closed can reopen. Not by forcing it, not by shaming yourself, but by understanding where the closure came from, and gently, patiently, choosing something new. Love is still waiting. It always was. And you are finally allowed to let it in.